All right, so welcome back from break. I hope that was a good little break for you. It was pretty good. Actually, it's my break right now. We're going this weekend to see Jaden in Phoenix. He's at Grand Canyon University, and since we're still stuck in the States, and just so you know, we are no closer to getting to the Philippines than we were a month ago. We're still waiting for like step one. So, since we're still stuck in the US and we have this week off, we are going to go see Jaden for a couple of days. So that's nice. So, this is actually Wednesday, right in the middle of break when I'm recording this. But the weather is beautiful here in Southern California. I don't know. Have I ever shown you my view? Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I don't even know what you can see. But this is. I'm staying at my brother's house. So that's my brother's house. Kind of up there. You can sort of see it. We're staying in this little guest house right over here. And I sit under this avocado tree and to do my Loom recordings, and this is my view, kind of overlooking these hills. Most people don't realize that Los Angeles is surrounded by mountains. What the tallest one over there is Mount Baldy. It still has a little bit of snow on top, but that's all. Every morning, not every morning, I sit at this table and I watch the sunrise right over there. And so, I mean, I can think of way worse places to be stuck during this quarantine. My brother's the most godless atheist you have ever known, but he's very generous, and he has this place, and he was like, stay as long as you need to. So he and his wife have been really great to us during this time. So anyway, a little personal stuff there. I don't know, it's break. Maybe I'm just feeling that way. Okay, so we just finished talking about the season of leaving. If you recall, the first season is the season of being settled, and that's where you have been for the last at least couple of years at Faith Academy, maybe for a long time. Some of you have been at Faith, but that feeling of being settled, of knowing where you belong and feeling like you belong, and understanding how things go, and being networked, and being able to get things done, and all of that sort of thing. And then the season of leaving, I'm thinking that you guys are mostly all in the season of leaving now. You know that you're leaving, you're making plans to leave, you're making plans for whatever is coming next in your life. And so you're in the season of leaving, and that was all about the raft, reconciliation, affirmation, saying farewell, and thinking about your destination. And don't forget about the city research project that I gave you. Okay, so the season of leaving is, I mean, it's temporary, right? It begins like right around now when you really start thinking about leaving and making plans to leave. But I mean, at some point you're going to actually leave, and you're going to get to the next place you're going. Even if you are Filipino and you live in Manila, you're going to graduate, leave Faith Academy, and just be back home and be making plans to go to university. And so that time of leaving is very brief. It can be very tumultuous, it can be very emotional, but it doesn't last very long. The season of transition is going to be different for all of you. Even if you have basically the same experience, like two of you might both be Koreans and you're both going to school and going to university in Seoul, and maybe you're going to the same university in Seoul, but the season of transition is going to be different for each of you, even if you're going to the same place, going to the same university and all of that, because everybody responds to it differently. So the most common characteristic of this season of transition is the season of chaos. It's a very chaotic season. For some of you, it will be the most chaotic your life has been up to this point in your relatively short life. A lot of you have had a lot of stability in your life, especially those of you, maybe you've been at Faith Academy for 12 years, you know, you guys that were there since kindergarten or first grade or second grade. You've had a lot of stability in the part of your life that you can remember. And now you're leaving. It's going to be very chaotic. And so when you think about your other transitions that you've made, they've all been minor transitions, okay? When you came to Faith Academy, when you went on furlough, if you even just traveling somewhere, the chaos of those transitions were handled by your parents, right? You didn't do the whole application process to come to Faith Academy yourself. Your parents took care of that for you, probably. You didn't buy the plane tickets and arrange for your transportation to the Philippines. Your parents did that. If you went home to Korea every summer, your parents bought your ticket and took care of those things. You might have flown by yourself, but you were still not probably responsible to be the one to buy those tickets, to make the schedules, to make sure all of that happens. And so now, some of you are going to have your parents with you for most of this transition as well. Some of you are taking your parents to university with you. I mean, they're going to be right there with you. Maybe you're going to live with them even your first semester or your first couple of semesters in university. But at some point, you're going to be on your own. I mean, your mom's not going to come to class with you, hopefully. If your mom is like sitting outside your university classroom waiting for you to get done, yeah, something's wrong. But I really doubt if that'll happen to you. Okay, so chaos, and that really characterizes this. So a bit of repeat here, a bit of reinforcement. In one short plane ride, you will lose your status, your roles, your routines, your comfort, and the self-confidence that comes from all of these, okay? A lot of your self-confidence has come from the comfort of understanding where you are and understanding the culture and that sense of belonging that you have. You are a third culture kid living in a culture of third culture kids, like you're part of a group, and you're going to make this transition where you're going to lose all of that. Okay, so the self-confidence that comes from understanding where you are. So like right now, you understand how to get to Faith Academy. Okay, even if you take the Faith van to school, or you carpool, or you live on campus or something like that, you understand how to get to school from wherever you live. And mostly it's kind of taken care of for you, but maybe you take public transportation a lot. Maybe you take a trike and a jeepney to the mall, and maybe you take the G-Liner and stuff like that. Maybe you're used to traveling around on your own, but when you go to university, I mean, I guess if you're going to Ateneo, you can still take a trike and a jeepney to get there, maybe from your house. But if you're going to Korea or America or Europe or Australia or someplace like that, you probably don't have a great sense of how to get from one place to another, how to get from where you're living to where you're going to university. Some of you may have a car. If you're going to the U.S., maybe you'll get a car. Maybe you have to have a car. In Los Angeles, it's super hard to live here without a car. Our public transportation sucks. And so if you don't have a car, you better live on campus in the dorms, and even then, somebody's going to have to drive you to the grocery store to buy like food and shampoo and stuff like that. So you may lack a basic knowledge of car repair, or how cell phones work in your home country, or how to get your oil changed, or public transportation, or the internet, or food, or tipping. Have I already talked about this? I can't remember. I feel like I talked about tipping, but like if you come to the US, do you know who to tip? Do you know how much to tip? You tip the waiter or waitress in a restaurant. If they take your order at your table and bring you your food, you tip them. If you order at the window and somebody brings it out to you, you don't tip them. You tip a taxi driver, but you don't tip the bus driver. Okay? You tip the person who cuts your hair, but you don't tip the person who does your, laundry. Okay? I mean, there are rules, and I'm not going to tell you all of them, but you can Google that on your own. But you see what I mean? There are going to be things about your new life, where you're going, that you don't understand, that always before your parents took care of these things, and now you have to be the one to take care of it. You may have you might not be comfortable speaking your first language. If you've grown up I've known Koreans and Filipinos who really are a little bit hesitant about going back to their home culture, their passport culture, for university. Um, Several Filipinos have already told me this semester that they're not super comfortable speaking Tagalog. Koreans, usually, even if you're fluent conversationally, you probably have a bit of anxiety with thinking about studying using academic Korean, reading journals, reading books that are written in academic Korean. I hear that phrase a lot. I've had students tell me that, when they go to university in Korea and they have to write papers in Korean, read a book in Korean, write a paper in Korean, what takes the other students like 45 minutes will take them like 5 hours to write the same paper. There are all these honorifics, right? One graduate told me that Korean, whenever he had to email his professors, he would always have his roommate read his emails first, because there are certain terms of respect that need to be appropriate when you're writing to your professor, and he wasn't sure what those were, so he always had his roommate read his emails because he didn't want to offend his professor just because he didn't use the correct honorific, term of respect, or something like that. Politeness, etiquette, social courtesy, things like that. Driving laws. If you've learned how to drive in the Philippines and you've gotten really comfortable driving around on like city streets in the Philippines, and then you come to the U.S. and drive like that, you're going to get a ticket, and those tickets are going to cost you $200, $300, $400, $500 every time you get a ticket. And not only that, but your car insurance payments are going to go way up if you start getting tickets on your record. Okay, so all of these things, so many things that maybe you haven't really thought of, and all of this can be even more unnerving. It can be more shocking. It can throw you more off balance if you're going to the country where your passport says you belong, okay, where you're a citizen of. Foreign students expect to be off balance culturally when they go to their culture. If you're a Korean and you've never been to the States and you're going to the States for university, you're a Filipino, you're going to Canada or Australia or someplace for university, you probably expect to be off balance culturally to some extent. But often third culture kids go home expecting it to be easy, expecting that, well, I haven't really been there that long, I haven't really been that affected by it, I think I'm going to be fine. And many of you will be fine. Probably most of you will be fine to some extent. But I would predict that all of you are going to struggle with some aspect of being a TCK, even if you've only been at Faith Academy for like 2 years. Okay? Fortunately, the more awkward you feel in your home country, if that's where you're going for university, the more of a TCK you are, and the more of a TCK you are, the more of a cultural chameleon you are, and you're probably going to be fairly good at faking it. You're going to be fairly good at seeming like you fit in. And when people are talking about something, you're not going to let on that you don't understand what's going on. You're just going to go with the flow. You're going to laugh at the jokes you don't understand. You're going to pretend to be interested in whatever everybody's talking about. But inside, you're going to think, who cares who won the football game? Who cares what kind of handbag people are carrying around, and stuff like that. So if I want to give you some advice, and my advice is, I think I have I forgot about this. Okay, so a couple of years ago, actually this is like 5 or 6 years ago, there was a student who said, she came to me after class, she said, "Mr. Hong, you're so negative about this whole transition. Everything you're saying we're going to struggle, you're saying it's going to be hard, you're saying it's, we're leaving behind everything that we know and love and all of that. Can't you say something like this? You'll always have your memories, so in a sense you will take some of this with you. You're not just leaving it all behind. You will have that comfort of having all this with you." And that's true. It's not the way I tend to think of things. I tend to want to prepare you guys for the worst. I would rather have you prepared for the worst and have you roll your eyes at me 6 months from now and say, "What the heck was Mr. Hong talking about? This isn't so bad," than for me to sugarcoat things and tell you everything is going to be great and you get there and it's not great. Okay? So like I always have this struggle. The guy who taught this class before me, the teacher who taught this for 3 years before I came to Faith Academy, he taught students how to do laundry. Like, he had this whole day where he taught them how to do laundry. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to teach the students how to do laundry. But that wasn't just an easy decision to make. I mean, laundry machines are so different. I mean, some you're going to swipe your card, some you're going to put coins in, some you're going to pay someone, some of you are just going to, pay somebody else to do your laundry altogether for you. Some machines are digital, some have dials, there's liquid soap, there's powdered soap, there's fabric softener, there's dryer sheets, there's dryer balls, there's all these things. How long do you dry it? Do you separate the colors? Does it matter? Hot water, cold water, warm water? And I get this, right? There are things that you could possibly learn, but in reality, you're all going to figure this out. I hope. There's always that possibility that one of you, probably no more than one of you, maybe not even one of you this year, maybe one of my students every 3 or 4 years that has just had a really hard month, their first month in university, and everything is new and everything is different, and they're always asking questions, and they're tired of being the one who never understands what's going on, and they don't want to ask any more questions. And so at the end of a long month, and maybe it's been a particularly bad week at the end of that month, and the other students that they thought they were friends with, it turns out, aren't their friends. They were just being polite. People don't care about you. They're starting to talk about you, about, it's that kid that always talks about the Philippines, let's not invite her. So maybe it's been a really hard week. So at the end of a long month, at the end of a hard week, at the end of a long day, you finally have to do your laundry. It's been a month, and you can't put it off any longer, but you've been dreading it because you walked past the laundry room and it looked foreign, it looked confusing. You don't maybe understand, maybe you've never done your own laundry before. And so you finally get your laundry basket and you walk into the laundry room with your quarters, and you find out that it's not quarters. You've got to swipe your ID card. So you go back to your room, you get your ID card. You've bought your detergent, you don't know if it's right, you look at the machine and there are all these options and all these settings and all of these things that are so confusing, and you just don't want to ask anyone how to do this anymore. You're tired of being the one that always doesn't understand what's going on, and so you just that's it. It's the last straw. This moment in the laundry room, and you crumple onto the floor and melt away into a puddle of tears until they come and, you know, carry you away to the counselor's office. And, you know, I mean, so if that's of course the worst case scenario, but what if that does happen to one of my students? So does that mean that I should teach all of my students every year how to do laundry? And you guys aren't even going to probably pay much attention to that anyway. I do have a handout, actually. I think I have a handout about how to do laundry. I'll stick it in this lesson if I remember. But you see what I mean? I don't want to sugarcoat what's coming. I would rather have you expect the worst and find that it's really not so bad than for you to think that it's all going to be okay, because I said that it was all going to be okay, and it turns out that it was the most difficult thing you've ever faced in your whole life. Okay? So, all of that to say, you will always have your memories. So in a sense, you will take some of this with you. It's true. You will always have your memories. And if you're the kind of person that gets comfort from thinking about things like this, then this slide is for you. So, moving on. If you haven't done the iceberg activity, I would like you to pause this video now and go and do the iceberg activity. Okay? And if you've already done it, then just carry on. And while we're pausing somewhat, I just want to point out that I drew this whole scene in Microsoft Word using the drawing tools and shading, and I even drew the birds. The fish are a little emoji, I think, of some sort, but I did add the eyes to the fish. I thought they looked a little impersonal without eyes, but yeah, the birds and anyway, the water, yeah. Okay, so presumably, if you haven't done this, you have paused, and I'm just going to take you to my copy of this over in Microsoft Word. The birds look better in Word than when I cut and pasted all over there. Anyway, this is how I came up with this, and I imagine you came up about the same, right? You guys understand the concept of an iceberg. About 10% of it is above water, and about 90% of it is below water, just like an ice cube in your drink. Most of it is below the surface. And so thinking of culture in terms of an iceberg can be really helpful to some people. So up at the top, you see relatively a small amount of the overall culture of a place, okay? You see behavior and speech and customs and language, traditions, you see food and the way people behave. That's what you see, what's external, okay? How they dress, stuff like that. But below the surface is actually the bulk of a person's culture. It's the majority of a culture. It's below the surface, and it's not something that you can just see. Now, you guys are the cultural chameleons, which means that you're really good at pretending like you belong in the top part of the cultural iceberg, but you can't fake your way through beliefs and values and assumptions and a basic worldview, okay? And that's going to be the part that is going to take you some time to get to know. And the things below the surface, that's what's going to put you off balance. Those are going to be the things that you immediately recognize that I don't understand something that's going on here. These are going to be the things where you offend people, respect to elderly people, for example, stuff like that. Other social taboos. I think I already talked about chewing with your mouth open. Not in the U.S., okay? And you're looking around and you're like, why won't anyone eat with me? Why won't anybody sit with me in the cafeteria? And you have no idea, because that's a social taboo that you don't understand. You're eating a cheeseburger because you're like, okay, I got this. I'm in America. and I'm having a cheeseburger and fries because I look around and that's what everybody else is eating, but you're eating it wrong, okay? So stuff like that, and I just point this out. I usually go, we'll have a whole day in class where we talk this through, and I have you guys talk in groups and all of that. I couldn't think of how that would work online. Maybe I'll have you guys do this in partners. Some of you have said that you enjoy talking about these things with someone else, so I'll have you maybe I'll have you do this in small groups of 2 to 4 or something like that. You can see how well I planned this out. I knew I wanted you to do this, but having you do it in partners, I don't know. But anyway, I want you to see this because, like I said, these things that are below the surface, those are the things that are going to put you off balance culturally. And no matter how much you understand about what's going on at the surface, your time living in a culture other than your passport culture has changed you below the surface, has changed you below the surface. So that now your beliefs and values and assumptions and worldview are, they're mixed. If you're Korean, these things are mixed with an American worldview, with a Philippine worldview. If you're American, they're mixed with a Korean worldview, with a European worldview. You see what I mean? And so you go back to the States and you think, oh, I'm good, and on the surface you are, but down below the surface you don't realize it, but you've changed, okay? And those are the things that are going to put you off balance, okay? So back to my slideshow. All right, so the season of transition. Now, culture shock is the feelings of confusion and anxiety that result when you experience the differences in another culture. If you've been in the Philippines long enough, you've seen other people come and go through culture shock. After the honeymoon stage where everything is wonderful and everything is great and everything is, oh, lovely, when new missionaries used to come, I'm getting messed up, you guys, because I started this and it was like a 15-minute video and then my battery died and I deleted that video. I'm just going to make a full-length video here. Oh, I'm almost out of time. Oh, I should stop here. I can't remember if I've already said some of these things in something that you've seen or if I said them in that 15-minute video. So, yeah, sorry about that. But I see that I'm at 27 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this one and pick this up in the next video.